Welcome back to Truth to Tell. I'm Michelle Ali-Murati.
And I'm Andy Driscoll, and it's good to be back for a while, at least. Thanks to my colleagues.
Happy to have you back, Andy. Can I just say, I'm glad to have you back.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. Tom, Legg, this is a pretty heady report you guys put together. Can you run down its primary findings in terms that listeners and viewers can get their arms around, get hold of?
Well, I guess there's really three parts to the report. First, we look at the numbers, just kind of review some of the inequality data for the United States, and then we compare that to Minnesota. The second part is really to look at the causes and impacts of inequality, and then finally we present a story about we allude to or speak of a new in economic inequality impact statement, which would be similar to the environmental impact statements that have been in use since the early 1970s, maybe into the 60s. What we find is, in terms of Minnesota, has lower income inequality, lower poverty, and higher median income than the United States as a whole. But Minnesota's median income being the income of the family in the middle of the distribution. Half have lower income and half have higher income.
Whereas in other parts of the country, it's a little more off balance than that?
Well, I just want to say that our income, our median income in Minnesota has for many, many years been higher than the median income for the United States as a whole. However, we had the largest drop of any state from 2000 until 2009, and about 18%.
In median income?
In median family income.
The drop just went like this, I noticed,
right,
on a scale, and you've got that here. And by the way, we should tell even your competition, not your competition, but Growth and Justice's sort of colleague in competition is Minnesota 2020. And they actually wrote an article, Jeff Van Wyschen did, supporting your findings. So he said these are all sustainable after an analysis that they did. So this has quite the credibility, this economic inequality study. So go ahead, please.
Okay. And so our median income has been dropping faster, although it has increased. It increased in 2011, and we don't know what will have happened in has happened in 2012. The data for the United States for 2012 just came out last week, but the state level data has not come out. So that's median income. If we think about poverty levels, our poverty levels remain lower than that of the United States, but they have been rising, and not only rising in absolute terms, as have the U.S. poverty rates, but they've been rising relative to the rest of the economy, or relative to the rest of the states. So we've gone from, and I don't know if I'll find it here now, but from like 4th to 11th, that may not be exactly right, but 4th to 11th in poverty rates. And
I'm not sure that it matters where we have fallen relative to the rest of the country so much as what are we doing about a lot of this eventually. I mean, now what is the Gini coefficient? What is that?
A Gini coefficient is a measure of inequality across the income spectrum. Poverty rates look at the bottom. Top income shares look at the top, and the Gini coefficient is an attempt to get at the overall level of inequality. And it's a number between 0 and 1. It would be 0 if everyone had the same amount of income. It would be 1 if one person had all of the income, and something in between is some inequality.
Okay.
Now, Minnesota's inequality, or Gini coefficient, is about 43, whereas the U.S. Gini coefficient is about 47.
And so the higher the number, the more inequality.
The more
there is.
inequality,
Yeah.
and it's not really proportional. There's a difference. There's a significant difference between 43 and 47. It's not proportional.
No,
It's
right.
not really a
you
proportional
have to take
number.
into account how the population levels too in the places that you're comparing, I would imagine.
Well, it does that automatically. It's just that the measure is not a proportional measure. All you can really say is that higher numbers reflect higher inequality. And so, just to give an example, if you look at the least unequal countries with the lowest Gini coefficients, which would be in Scandinavia,
Yes.
about 0.2,
Almost inevitably.
about 0.23, 0.25, 0.27.
Okay.
Europe, the continental Europe is in the 0.3 range. Britain, the UK accepted, which has higher inequality. And if you look at Canada, Canada and Japan are very similar to continental Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are in the 0.3 to 0.35 range, and
That's
the United
pretty
States
low.
is 0.47 right now, and Minnesota is about 0.43.
But what do those numbers tell you, and what does that mean? Are these these ought to be red flags for somebody, right?
There's our Gini coefficient in the United States has risen from in the high 0.3s to 0.47, which is huge.
You're saying it's almost geometric as it goes up the scale.
Well, just to give you, the highest is in some of the countries in South America, which is about 0.55, and
right.
So-
Where poverty is really like in Brazil and some of the countries that.
and China's a little higher than ours.
Oh.
India's a little lower.
Yeah, I'd noticed that because China, to me, I know you're saying that this takes into account the difference in population, but it seems to me like the size of the country should matter. Like to me, just looking at it, intuitively, it seems like a smaller country with a smaller population, it would be somewhat easier to manage this inequality than in a country like the United States, especially because you're dealing with some significant state governments as well as federal government that are trying to regulate or deregulate this kind of thing. I mean, so when you look at China, I would think that would be right, that would, out of all the countries that I was seeing on these lists in the report, that we would be most similar to them. I mean, does that make sense, Tom?
Well, certainly the structure of the government would have a dramatic impact. So we have very powerful states here, and so it's much more difficult to manage things politically and manage the economy when you have powerful states and as well as diverse regions. China does have a top-down government, and so if they decided, they would probably have an easier time deciding to change the level of inequality and actually achieving it than we would.
Do take care of each other.